As always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. We'll do some brief opening statements and then we'll open it up for any questions with an understanding, of course, that in an ongoing investigation there are some areas we will not be able to answer, but we'll do our best, I think, to address most of your concerns. I'm proud to announce two separate drug operations that led to more than $200,000 worth of illegal drugs taken off the streets of Escambia County. On Wednesday, September the 28th, the drug case involving the distribution of the synthetic drug known as bath salts came to an end. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection Interdiction Team, the DEA, the Escambia County Sheriff's Office Special Investigations Unit, and SWAT teams served a search warrant in the 1000 block of Shandell Lake Drive. During the search of the home, investigators located several bags of powder believed to be bath salts in controlled prescription pills. Oxycodone, Roxicodone, and Xanax, marijuana, hallucinogenic mushrooms, and anabolic steroids were also found. In addition, investigators located a pill press and 2 firearms. This is the first pill manufacturing machine seized in Escambia County. The occupants of the residence were manufacturing pills containing MDPV, which is a chemical used to manufacture the synthetic drug commonly referred to as bath salts. The pills that were manufactured from the pill press mimicked the design and look of the controlled prescription medication Xanax. We are concerned because the bath salts in this case were disguised as Xanax, and Xanax is commonly abused by younger individuals. The physical effects of Xanax and bath salts are opposite. While Xanax is used to treat anxiety, health-related issues, bath salts can be both a stimulant and a hallucinogen, causing the user to experience severe side effects such as paranoia and an overall distorted reality. Ronald Greyholver and Gary Staldmeyer, a known associate of the street gang Trays Up, were both arrested and charged with trafficking in a controlled substance. Also arrested and charged with numerous drug-related charges was Kevin McLemore, a former Escambia County deputy who resigned from the Escambia County Sheriff's Office in 2014 while under an internal affairs investigation. During a separate drug operation, on September the 28th, members of the Escambia County Sheriff's Office Special Investigative Unit, the ECSO SWAT team and DEA agents, and the HIDA task force agents served a search warrant at an apartment located in the 7000 block of North 9th Avenue. This was a month-long drug interdiction. Derico Leonard was suspected of distributing and trafficking cocaine within Escambia County. During a search of the resident, investigators and agents with the DEA and DEA HIDA task force located 1.5 kilos of cocaine. Investigators also located 2 firearms during the search. The estimated street value of the cocaine is $150,000. Leonard was arrested and charged with drug trafficking and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. This time I'll introduce Mr. John Molchan with the State Attorney's Office to make any brief introductory statements.
Thank you, Sheriff. Both of these drug busts will be handled by our special prosecution units. We will assign a prosecutor, more experienced prosecutor, to prosecute these individuals. All of these individuals are facing mandatory minimums. That, of course, is something we have to work on with respect to the weight of the drugs that were seized with these individuals. They will vary from 3-year minimum mandatories up to a 25-year minimum mandatory. And dependent upon the weight, that will be the appropriate penalty that we will seek. All of these individuals, the State Attorney's Office intends to prosecute vigorously and intends to seek significant incarcerative sentences in this regard. We do congratulate the Sheriff's Office and all the partners that were involved in this particular investigation. These individuals are certainly responsible for putting out a great deal of the controlled substances that plague Escambia County, and we're going to finish off the job by making sure that they're incarcerated for lengthy periods of time.
This time I'll introduce, Lieutenant Quinata. Lieutenant Quinata heads up our narcotics unit within the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. Lieutenant Quinata will respond to any specific questions you may have about this drug operation. The reason why I'm turning it over to Lieutenant Quinata is you can well imagine investigations are ongoing in this area, and we want to ensure both from an investigative side and also from a prosecutorial side that we do not go into any area that may hinder any further investigative efforts or prosecutorial efforts. Lieutenant Quinata?
Good afternoon.
Questions?
Could you just give us an idea of just the length of time it took to prep for these two operations?
Both of them are separate. The narcotics unit, along with every other agency in a combined effort, no less than a month.
Is there a reason we took special attention to bath salts this time as opposed to other drugs in the streets?
You've seen mainstream media, the problems that we've had with bath salts and synthetic drugs. It's become a real problem, especially around here. We really do not want it to get as bad as it is down in Central Florida and other areas of the country. The stories about the suspects chewing off people's faces and the zombie drugs and things like that. What's more interesting is the fact that he's using a pill press, the first one found in Escambia County ever, and I've been in narcotics for 15 years and I've never seen one.
Is there a reason to think there might be other pill presses out there? And could you kind of give us an idea of when you say pill press, what do you mean by that?
The individuals involved in this case, they're suspected of making their own pills. In this particular case, that pill press that you see up there, if you stamp, and all it is, the powder up there, it will stamp it into a pill, compress it, and compact it to look like a pill, and it mimics Xanax. It's got Xanax stripped on it or stamped into it, so it looks exactly like a Xanax pill. So you could effectively sell it, they could sell it as a Xanax bar to anyone that would take it, not knowing that it wasn't actually Xanax. It happened, its true contents was a bath salt or some synthetic drug.
Is that done up just because Xanax is more expensive, I guess, or was it like, I guess a greater profit markup for them, for lack of a better term? Like, why would they sell it as Xanax as opposed to bath salts?
Disguise it from law enforcement, it's one reason. The other reason is it's simply more profitable. Bath salts are by far more profitable than prescription pills, especially nowadays.
So with them using a pill press, that's a pretty expensive investment to make something or to make more money. Talk about how elaborate the setup was based off what your officers saw.
In this particular case, it wasn't an elaborate setup. This press was just located in one individual room. These are difficult to come by. I think there's very few companies, when I say very few, considering the mass of the United States, there's very few companies that have pill presses, at least the commercial grade. This is homemade stuff that is bought elsewhere outside of the United States. It's not bought here. That's how we came about this case in the first place, was the bath salts being delivered, a package being interdicted by the customs agents.
Sheriff, did I hear you right and say that Mr. McLemore was a former deputy?
That is a true statement.
You said he hasn't been employed since 2014 with you guys. Is that right?
That is a true statement.
What was still though? I mean, I'm sure you've had contact with him prior to.
That is incorrect. No, that's incorrect.
Oh, that's not. Okay.
No. He's been separate from the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. And as I would let Lieutenant Quinata elaborate on this more. One of the difficulties of this investigation, in this case, we were actually dealing with someone who knows the system, who understands police procedure, and so that made this investigation that much more difficult.
Do we know how long the operation was taking place?
We've received the sheriff's office received information about this particular, the pill press, the powder, the bath salts, and manufacturing their own pills, probably in the past 6 months. For the past 6 months since when we first heard the information. But again, it's the first one that we've seen in this area, so you hear that information and you kind of put it off to the side, and honestly, us and narcotics say there's no way there's a pill press down here.
How expensive are those to get how difficult is it to get your hands on one of those?
I wouldn't know where to begin except for the internet.
Yeah, that's an excellent answer.
But you can just tell by the writing and the instructions on the side of the machine itself that that is not, the grammar's not correct. Those items were not manufactured here.
Sheriff, did I hear you correctly that he was he resigned, Mr. McLemore, that he resigned while under investigation?
While under investigation, that's true. Understand, Kevin, we can't compel you to be fired. I can't say you're not going to resign. And so therefore, some of these cases have that. Now, the information that we then pass on to the state of Florida, specifically to the commission that handles certification for law enforcement officers, the form that I'm required to fill out as the agency head and mail to them clearly indicates that he was under investigation, and there's a executive summary synopsis that's attached to that and sent to the Criminal Justice Training Standards Commission, and they review that and make a determination as to whether or not to permanently pull your certification or to do a suspension, and they make that determination. So that information was sent to the appropriate authorities in the state of Florida.
Can you speak to the nature of the investigation?
Specifically, no, but it is a matter of public record if you'd like to pull it, and I encourage everyone to do that, depending upon how in-depth you want to go on your investigative reporting of this. But again, he's one of those individuals that I believe received a permanent revocation of his standards. That's critical, because otherwise we pass bad law enforcement officers around. If they get a suspension and they get recertified, then you can literally have another agency, not only within the state of Florida, but other states which have reciprocity with Florida, and they hire officers that are less than, I guess we would say perfect.
You seem to know a little bit more about his record than we have, because we haven't done the research. Were you surprised that he turned up in one of your busts?
No, actually no, because of the actions that he was taking near the end of his time here, Anthony, at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office. I think it was indicative that he was on the wrong path.
And what were those actions, if you can elaborate?
Contact with law enforcement, the known associates, circumstances that he left the sheriff's office under, and again, when we called him in and attempted the questioning, etc., he refused to cooperate in the investigation. And those are indications that are pretty clear that an officer that has been wrongly accused, that's wanting to clear their record, and again wants the facts to come out, and even suffer a suspension or whatever, wants to stay in law enforcement, will be cooperative. So the reaction of the person that you're speaking to is highly indicative of that.
Sheriff, can you talk about the previous arrest that they had? He has been arrested one time.
Yes, that's true. He now is facing some significant charges. He was a convicted felon at this point, for prior drug charges and convictions. He was in possession of a firearm, which means enhanced penalties. Those are things I probably need to let the state attorney speak to, though. John?
Yeah, there was a violation of probation that Mr. McLemore will be facing also. They were walking the warrant, violation of probation warrant through this morning to make sure that was served upon him. That will carry with it a no bond, and that will escalate his sentencing points in that case as well as the present case. I think one thing to note in the bath salts case is that all of us are aware of the bath salts being factors in a number of deaths that have occurred throughout the United States and as well as Florida. These pills that are homemade pills and drugs are extraordinarily dangerous when taken by people. These are homemade kinds of things that there is no quality control and there is no indication as to what is in them. I know that we've been out on the scene, the sheriff has been on the scene on deaths in which people have taken these so-called homemade types of bath salts and things like that. There is a significant danger to the welfare of the community when people are taking these things. And that's why I commend the sheriff for getting involved in this particular case in his group, because these are significantly dangerous drugs. While all of them are, the bath salts are particularly worrisome because of their impact.
I recall 2 cases over the last couple of years that, and as Mr. Molchan just said, and then of course Lieutenant Quinata's folks can speak to those effects, and that's the danger when you're disguising a pill. So you're selling it on the street, and again, if you're a user, you think you're getting a Xanax, and now you're ingesting something that will have a totally opposite effect of Xanax. A couple of years ago, I had a case up in Century where a gentleman eventually died of upper respiratory failure, just shut down because he had mixed some drugs, which we think bath salts were involved. We also had the incident here where the gentleman went to one of our schools. All he had on was a T-shirt and was naked other than the T-shirt. We believe that was a negative reaction to some of these homegrown street drugs. And again, he fought 2 officers to a draw. And it was one of those amazing things, again, that the effects that the drugs have on the body, for your physical abilities and that sort of thing. So as Mr. Molchan said, getting away from just the fact that you're killing yourself, you're a tremendous danger to our community. And that's been broadly in the news. I mean, hideous to consider that someone would, eat someone's face. That's the effects of these drugs. I mean, those of us that live somewhat of a semblance of a normal life would ask ourselves, why would you, take the chance of ingesting something that would have that sort of reaction? Unfortunately, people do.
You said it took about a month of prep work. Is there any indication of how long these guys have been selling, pill pressing? Like, how long has have their operation been going on?
The information that we received about the pill press is about 6 months ago. Other than that, Mr. McLemore's history, the prior search warrant that we served on his house before, and now he's a convicted felon for, was for steroids. So it's been going on for a couple of years.
Yeah, Anthony, let me explain that too, and this is part of the joint effort that we go through with, our investigators, the state attorney's office, and other investigative agencies when we partner with these things. You need to, our community, not you, our community needs to understand that the state attorney's office is going to spend a tremendous amount of money prosecuting these cases. And so therefore, we must make these cases as complete as possible to the satisfaction of Mr. Eden's office, where his investigators will also back check a lot of our work, which is part of this process, because we can't, bring a case based upon just a mere supposition that we think someone, or we do one drug buy, and so now we want to rope this in and make it this large prosecution because they can't get this through our court system. And so therefore, while some may be shocked at the time lag, that's just due diligence on our part and due diligence on the state attorney's office. They're going to spend possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars prosecuting our drug cases. They don't have an unlimited budget, and that's the reality of doing business.
Any connection between the two?
There are no connections between these two cases, no.
No.
None.
Can you talk to the number of arrests? It says in Florida. Do they have other arrests outside of Florida?
We don't release that information. That requires access to the federal database, and we wouldn't release that information. Plus, prior to prosecution, we're very careful at to what extent we go to in the background of the individuals.
Are all the arrests drug-related in Florida?
No, there are drug arrests, but other arrests also. Now, by the way, their arrest records, many of their arrest records are part of public information. If you go to the clerk of the court's website, for the folks that are local, you can pull that up, and they will tell you what prior arrests that they've had, prior convictions, etc. That is a matter of public record.
I don't know if you can get into the detail of this, but is there like someone actually made out of these three, was someone making it, and the other two guys were selling it on the street, or is there how did their details of their operation necessarily?
Now, I still believe all three were involved in the same thing, whether it's, and I can't make a bunch of assumptions right now, but what we can prove, and we're hoping to prove, is that all three got together in some way, either one buying the press, which we're still investigating that, one buying the bath salts and getting them shipped in from, say, China, and others distributing it. Now, we know that McLemore has a history of distribution of narcotics, so that's basically how it runs down with these individuals.
Did that answer your question, Anthony? I think what you were saying, did one do the pill manufacturing and one sell it and one do whatever? I'm not sure we know the specific breakdown of that.
All three of these individuals are in the same house at the same time, staying together.
If your question is, did they cross-train? I'm sure some of them cross-trained.
And one more time on the house, the location for the three, and then the location for Mr.
Do you know that off the top of your head?
The 1,000 block of Shandell Drive,
Yeah, and then 9.
and then the 7,000 block of North 9th Avenue.
Yeah.
Now, I know the time frame, you asked about the time frame, a month long and things like that, but realistically, when you're talking about bath salts, things like that, that's something that we want to jump on as law enforcement. And you can see that the group of individuals and the agencies that participated in this, we all got together, and it needed to be taken care of as quick as possible, including the cocaine case. I mean, you're talking about 1.5 kilos. We need to get that off the street. Our job is to get the distributors.
Are there more arrests pending in either case?
The second case, no. As far as right now, no. We're still looking into it.
I know we talked a lot about the pill press and the bath salts. Could you just quickly reiterate just how important it is that Mr. Leonard and all of his drugs are off the street? What kind of impact does that make?
With 1.5 kilos, again, Pensacola, I've said this before, Pensacola is not a source city. We're talking about a $50,000 brick of cocaine that's brought in from Houston and/or a source city like Atlanta. So the amount of dope that he's bringing in, 1 kilo cocaine, he can easily turn that into a street value of $200,000. It's huge, it's massive. A lot of people were going to this individual, we suspect. Now that part is still under investigation, but just the mere fact, that amount alone, considering what we normally get off of search warrants, is no more than, the average is maybe 2 or 3 ounces of cocaine versus the 36 out of 1 kilo. So it's very significant. This dope is being spread throughout Escambia County.
All right, guys, thank you. They'll be available afterwards